Welcome to this week's episode of Interviews with Experts, and today I'm joined by Daniel Disney. Daniel is a LinkedIn expert. He's the author of the Amazon #1 bestseller, The £1 Million LinkedIn Message, and he's also the author of the Ultimate LinkedIn Sales Guide, due out with Wiley in early 2021. So Daniel, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me on, Georgia. Very excited to talk with you today.
Awesome. So I love what you do because it's so specific. It's not, social media strategist or anything like that. It's specifically LinkedIn, and anybody I think who's in business and is on LinkedIn knows that it's a very powerful platform. But it seems to me that it's developed so much in the last, at least couple of years, that it has all of these capabilities. And you've got a lot of people now wanting to build online brands, and I'm not sure how many people really know how to make the most of LinkedIn. So tell me a bit about your work with LinkedIn and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I mean, my background's sales. I've worked in sales my kind of whole career, and started using LinkedIn. It was around about 8 years ago, sort of really early days. I mean, LinkedIn wasn't too dissimilar to what it was now, slightly, a little bit different. But I just started using it to sort of connect with customers, and then I started to find prospects through it, and bit by bit started to find all these different ways you can leverage it as a sales tool. And the more I used it, then my personal brand started to build, and people would start to follow me and engage in my content, and just sort of bit by bit started to see all these different opportunities within it. And as I started to generate more with it, it sort of grew everything that I was kind of building. And about nearly 3 years ago now, I was in a fortunate position to be able to leave the sort of full-time job I had as a sales director and go self-employed, running a business I built on LinkedIn, which is the daily sales, and then what would eventually become a sort of business as a trainer, speaker, and obviously eventually an author, helping businesses around the world understand how to use LinkedIn sort of properly. My passion has always been how to use it to get results, not just the fluffy metrics of likes and followers, but how can you actually get really good quality leads that actually convert and turn into revenue. And I think that kind of helps me help the people I work with.
Yeah, so that's really cool because when you talk about, I think getting engagement on the one hand is a challenge in itself, genuine, consistent engagement. But you're also talking about, specifically selling on LinkedIn. So, I get loads of messages, as I believe every single person on the platform does every day, people you've never met going, I love what you do and blah, blah, and I can help you do this. Is selling on LinkedIn real though? Are there real opportunities out there?
Oh, there are tons, but unfortunately, what most people do is they do it the wrong way. It's the same, but they do it on the phone, they do it on email. Unfortunately, a lot of sales teams, a lot of sales engines in businesses are based on really old sales methods. They're done in a really aggressive and sort of mass scale way. So it becomes less about sending a personal message or a personal phone call, and more about, right, here's a template, let's spam this out to hundreds, if not thousands of people and just see what comes back. And it doesn't work. It hasn't worked for a long time. What does work on LinkedIn and any other platform you use is sending real, relevant, personal messages to people you genuinely believe you can help with your product or service, and doing it in a way that is sort of beneficial to them, not focused on what you're selling, but what they're going to benefit from it. So LinkedIn is a very powerful sales tool when you use it the right way. Unfortunately, a lot of people, I don't know, they go into sort of sales autopilot. I use this example. For anyone who's watched the film The Wolf of Wall Street, they might remember this, but there's a famous thing in sales. You get it in pretty much any sales interview where the interviewer will ask you to sell them a pen. So they'll say, sell me this pen. And it's supposed to, your chance to prove how great at selling you are. And pretty much anyone you do this to, whether they've worked in sales or not, they go into this sort of sales autopilot mode where they'll just start spewing these random features about the pen. Oh, it's the most amazing pen in the world. It shoots lasers, it prints money, it writes in gold, it does all these great things. And that's what we think selling is. And the reality is the opposite. If you really want to sell the pen, the first thing you do is you ask them questions. Okay, what pen do you have at the moment? What do you use a pen for? What challenges do you have with your current pen? Have you thought about getting, that's what selling's about. And regardless of whether it's LinkedIn, the phone, or email, when you start selling like that, then it becomes effective. And that's what LinkedIn selling is about.
Incredible, thank you. And so, with that in mind, I'm sure it takes more than simply sending a message. Just regardless of what's in the message, there's bound to be this whole process around it, right? And there's like building trust and all of the things that you just mentioned come into any type of sale, no matter where it is. What are the, where should entrepreneurs who are really looking, who are serious about building up their online brand, they're really serious about really building their community and serving others, where do they start when they're, with LinkedIn?
Yeah, so the best place they can start, and you kind of said the word already, brand. It's their personal brand. It's their brand as an individual. It's more powerful than pretty much most corporate brands out there. And it's kind of the big thing on LinkedIn right now. We're at a real fortunate stage where organic reach is still really powerful. I mean, I was lucky enough to kind of jump on this sort of 7, 8 years ago, but the fact is it's still accessible, whereas it's very difficult to build a personal brand on Facebook. Very difficult to do it on Instagram unless you chuck a lot of money at paid ads. On LinkedIn, you can still achieve amazing results without having to spend a penny. So your personal brand is where you want to start. And the key, biggest tip I can give to building a personal brand is give value. Give. The more you give, the more you'll get back. The more you give, the quicker you will build a brand. A lot of, again, going back to that sort of autopilot, a lot of the mistakes that sort of entrepreneurs, businesses, salespeople make is they go on to get. So they're just asking, they're either sending the messages or they're just writing promotional posts. Here's my latest product. Here's my new book. It's all about them, buy my things. And actually, if you really want to grow a brand, an audience, that then does buy from you, you need to give first. So give them value, share and create content that's going to be beneficial to them, that's not directly about what you sell, but whatever they do in their role. If your ideal customer, for example, is marketing, then create content for marketing people that's relevant to them. What's happening in the world of marketing? What new technologies are there? What tips, what insights, what stories can you share that's going to help them in their job? Do that on a regular, consistent basis, and you'll start to build a brand of giving. And then when you do talk about something like, here's my new book, they're going to want to buy it because you've given them all this stuff. You've built that trust and relationship and earned that credibility.
Yeah, awesome. And so, a question I get, as you know, I work with authors, so helping people write books and also blogs and podcasts as well, so they can create this amazing library of content, and it enables them to stay up to date with, engaging with their audience. They can apply their topic through the book to, real-time updates via their podcast and really start these conversations. And when it comes to social media and LinkedIn in particular, it's this really great platform for pushing some momentum behind all of that content. But then sometimes I think there can be this sort of fatigue, can't there, with building a brand when it relies on this constant output of content. There's some ways that people can add value and share those amazing that amazing information without reinventing the wheel every time. Like, how can they use what they're creating in a way that makes sense on LinkedIn?
So I've been sharing content every day for the last, I think, 6 years now, solid. So I can tell you from experience how hard it is sharing content every single day and trying to be creative and create unique, engaging content all the time and sort of keep that momentum. Now, I've achieved that. I've been able to do that. But I think the best way, and I use the nerdiest of analogies to kind of describe this. Again, I'm full of these film analogies. The Matrix. For anyone who hasn't watched The Matrix, maybe you want to watch it first. But there's kind of a scene where the main character obviously needs to find this sort of secret computer world that's all around. And what he kind of does at the first time is he doesn't see it. He doesn't know what's around him. He doesn't see the Matrix. And then the moment he does, he realizes it's everywhere. And that's the reality of content. There are content opportunities all around you, and it's not necessarily about reinventing the wheel. Sometimes it's just about telling a story in a slightly different way or being inspired to tell it by something that happened to you today. So I might be sat here, I'm drinking a mocha at the moment, and I might use that to think back to a story of when I met a prospect or a customer and we had mochas it was in London, and I can start to tell a story that I may have told before, but actually I didn't focus on that particular detail, and maybe there was some funny thing that happened with the mocha in that. There are content opportunities all around us, and it's finding just those kind of different ways to either retell a story. But beyond reshaping old stories, you're always having new stories.
Yeah.
So what happened to me yesterday, I haven't talked about yet because it happened to me yesterday. What's happening to me today, I haven't talked about because it's happening to me today. So not only can you've got tons of things you can do with the past, you've got a constant feed of new things happening that you can share. I think the biggest challenge is getting comfortable creating content. Soon as you're comfortable with it, you'll start to see all those sort of opportunities and it becomes less of a burden. But trust me, you will have days where you just don't know what to write or what to put out there. I get them, and it's tough. I think the only thing that I suggest to people in those times, things that I do, is I switch off. If I'm overthinking it, can't think of ideas, I will stop trying to think of ideas and I will go and immerse myself in something. I'll listen to a podcast, I'll watch a YouTube video, I'll read a couple of chapters of a book, and usually within that will be the sort of sparks of inspiration that trigger something where I go, yeah, okay, there's an idea, and then I can write.
Yeah, I really like that because when you were saying that there, I was thinking, but I'm so boring at the moment. I don't do anything but work. Me and Craig hang out. I'm like, how can that be a LinkedIn post? So, but you're right. It's just seeking those bits of inspiration, and that could well be that their own content as well as looking outside and at other people's.
It's a really good point about this year, and I will admit it's been the same for me. Content is a lot easier when you're out doing more things. Either you're in the office, you're traveling, whatever you do in your role. When you're more active, there are a lot more content opportunities. But where a lot of us are now based at home, probably working a bit less than perhaps we would do, it can be quite hard to find good stories to write. But again, this is where it comes to sort of opening your eyes. And I mean, one thing you could do, Georgia, you like me have a bookshelf in the background full of books. If you were really struggling and on a bit of a dry patch for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you could literally every day just take a screenshot, take a photo of a page in a book that you like and write about the message in that page that you enjoy. You could do a book a day, a book recommendation a day, a book a week, and talk about different parts, and that's not you having to invent anything. All you're doing is sharing your thoughts about someone else's book that's going to be valuable, because there'll be people in your audience that would have read the book and will agree with you. There'll be people that haven't read the book that will appreciate you sharing it because they'll go and buy it and it will benefit them. Again, it's giving value, but it's just opening your eyes thinking, well, I'm not doing anything. What can I write about? Actually, there is stuff all around.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So it's actually quite easy to find something. You've just got to just look around you. Okay, so what about building a company page versus your personal profile? Is that something that people should be looking at doing?
So yeah, it's a question I get asked quite a lot. Which one should I do? Which one's more valuable? Which one's more important? The reality is they're both really valuable and both really important. I would say the bigger opportunity sits within a personal profile. As I said, personal brands are huge. The whole people buy from people, is a real big thing at the moment. And I see companies where their staff have more followers than their entire marketing team have been able to generate for the company page. From an individual level, the potential's massive, but that doesn't mean it's not a choice. Don't do one or the other, do them both. To have a company page, you would just have a slightly different approach. Your personal profile will be stories from your experiences. The company page should be more focused from an industry sort of top level view. But again, the focus needs to be on value. You need to give value. Too many company pages, again, are just churning out their own news, their own updates. It's all about them, and no one cares. No one wants to follow pages like that. You need to give valuable content. One of the best examples I can give that do both of these things perfectly is a company called gong.io, Gong.io, American-based company. It's a sort of revenue intelligence tool, and they nailed it on the head in both camps. They have loads of their staff building personal brands, some of them getting 15, 20,000 followers on LinkedIn, creating amazing story content, which is helping them generate tons of leads and sales. You've then got their company page, which kind of really defined the way a company page should do LinkedIn, sharing amazing blogs and articles every single month. But what they did that helped them kind of stand out is all their articles were data backed. So they share sales tips backed by the data that their system, their software is able to find. And, their blogs pretty much every single time will get anywhere between 300 to 500 likes minimum. And that's not easy on LinkedIn for anyone. And they've been doing that consistently now for 3-4 years. So a good company to check out just to get some inspiration on how a company page and individual pages can be done well.
Yeah, that's really great. I actually wrote that down to have a look. I think it's a challenge, isn't it? Things with the company page, getting the tone of voice, what persona, all that kind of thing. Yeah, awesome. Okay, and so what about native content then? Because LinkedIn articles are great, actually. I personally love them. I recommend to all my clients to do them. What's the kind of behind the scenes take on native content on
Yeah,
LinkedIn?
so LinkedIn's always going to prefer people creating content on its platform. It doesn't really like links or external content. Again, a few misconceptions with this. I see a lot of other LinkedIn experts telling people, don't put links in posts. You can put links in posts. I put links in posts and it does not damage the engagement that significantly as long as the post is good. If you put a link on a bad post, it's not going to do good. You put a link on a good post, it will do good. Focus on the quality of the post, not some of these bizarre things that people kind of suggest out there. But yes, LinkedIn is always going to push its own organic content. So things like articles, uploading organic native videos, things like that are always going to do a lot better. And yeah, articles are great. Articles were the form of content that were the best bit of content when I started using it 7-8 years ago. Articles were huge on LinkedIn. They're not as big as they used to be, but they're still massive. The reason articles tend to offer the best sort of return, the best ROI, is you give a lot more. So you are able to put a lot more value into an article than you can in a text post or a short video. Things like that. In an article, you give more. Because you give more, you're able to have a call to action. You're able to have an about the author section where you can write about yourself, and that can really help drive sort of people to either follow you, to put in an inbound lead. Again, the focus needs to be on sort of value. I'll give a couple of quick tips just because there's some common traps people have when they write LinkedIn articles. Number one is the image. You need to have a good image. If you want someone to click on it, there needs to be an image that pulls them in. I use something called canva.com, canva.com, easy, free to use, and you can create high quality sort of article images. Then you got your title. You need to have a good title. Again, if you want them to read it, that's the hook. So it needs to be a strong, bold, engaging title, that obviously matches with the imagery. And then in the article itself, just make it flow nicely. The most common tip I give to people with the articles they write is stretch it out. A lot of people write these big, chunky paragraphs, big solid block of text that someone's going to look at and think, oh, I don't want to read that. I'm on social media, I'm on my phone or I'm on my laptop. And actually, if you just stretch it out and break those sort of chunky paragraphs into 3-4 smaller paragraphs, maybe with some bullet points, some single line sentences, make it engaging, make it flow. Remember, people are scrolling. They're not reading a book, they're scrolling on their screen. So make it flow nice and engaging, break it up with an image or a link, or a video. All these things are really simple and easy to do on LinkedIn when you're writing an article, but you'll just drive more people to the end, and that's what you want. And then the final tip is you want them to engage. So you could get 100,000 people read that blog, but you cannot see any of those 100,000 people. You can only see them when they click like, when they write a comment, or they share it. So you want to try and drive them to do one or more of those three things. So at the end, try and start conversation or ask them to engage in it. The more people that engage, the more people you can see, and that's how you generate the sales.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you. And it's like blog writing 101, isn't it? All of that stuff. It's exactly the same if you're doing that for a website, you would need those same principles. Yeah, brilliant. And so LinkedIn Stories came out 2 weeks ago, really recently, right? Yeah, so that's fun. I see you on LinkedIn Stories every day, of course, being the LinkedIn expert. Do you have any sort of insight as to how that's going, and why have they introduced LinkedIn Stories?
Well, so the funny thing is, I actually spoke to someone at LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, and they've rolled out nearly 3-4 years worth of new features in this year alone because of everything that's happened. So that's why there's been all these new things. You've got LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn polls, LinkedIn stories. There's been updates to the algorithm. Tons of changes come in that, we're going to, and there's more that will still happen before the end of this year that would have been rolled out over the next couple of years. So, the events of this year have kind of encouraged them to bring them out sooner. I mean, it's all really good stuff. It's all helping people create and find more opportunities on LinkedIn. I like stories because the general rule on LinkedIn is not to share more than one bit of content a day. If you share more than one bit of content a day, it goes against the algorithm and it will damage the previous post that you've done that day. It would damage any future posts you do, and it just becomes too noisy. So 1 post a day is the optimum amount. But with stories, you can post 2, 3, 4, 5 stories a day because they're micro forms of content. And the people that then engage in it, they get to kind of go through your stories of the day, and it's just little snapshots. It could be a photo, it could be a sort of sub 30-second mini video clip that gives people more of an insight into what you're doing. And again, not something you need to overthink, but I might, take a photo of the sort of first page of the book because we finished writing it. I might take a picture of the cover design or a part of it to kind of tease it. I might take a selfie of me, next to my laptop, or a selfie of me with a book that I'm reading. It brings people into my world. And when you mix in then sort of posts that are relevant to what you do, so it could be a picture of you signing a book, and you might then add a bit of text saying shipping out some books to this customer. Someone's going to look at that and think, oh wow, okay, so we could get some copies of signed books. Maybe my team would like that. It's not you advertising, it's just you sharing what you're doing for other people, that then creates a bit of desire in potential prospects in the future as well. So yeah, stories are great.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it as well, in terms of it's an opportunity to put out all those bits that aren't necessarily a post. Or you don't want to flood your feeds. Cool. Okay. I mean, it's really easy to see why you're the LinkedIn expert. Tell us a bit about your book. It's your second book that you're working on now. I can't wait for this to be out. I'm already recommending people look out for it and buy it. Why put all of this together in a book, and why now?
Yeah, so my first book came out last year, The £1 Million LinkedIn Message. And as you kind of said at the start of this conversation, it was focused on all of the terrible salespeople sending these terrible spammy sales pitch messages. So I thought I wanted to write, I've never written a book before. I'd never written anything longer than a blog. So it was a whole journey and process for me. So the £1 Million LinkedIn Message is a smaller book, about 160 pages, focused on a specific area of LinkedIn, which is the messaging part. It was just an opportunity for me to kind of, dabble in writing and get kind of used to it. What I've always wanted to do, and what I'm now in the process of finishing, is what will be the ultimate LinkedIn sales guide, which covers everything from profile, doing all the searches, connecting, growing your network, building a personal brand, messaging, content, strategies, tools, all the wonderful things that anyone who wants to use LinkedIn as a tool to build a personal brand, a business brand, generate sales and leads. I want it to be as comprehensive as possible. So yeah, I've literally just poured everything I know, and I just wanted it to be accessible so that anyone around the world who has customers and prospects on LinkedIn and wants to use it more effectively to reach them could pick up that book, read it, digest it, apply it, and start getting real results. None of it in the book is theory. It's all stuff that's been tried, tested, and proven by me over the years, and also by the companies and teams that I work with. So I'm really excited. It's been a long process writing this to make sure I get it right. I'm calling it the ultimate LinkedIn sales guide. I want it to live up to that name. And now that it's pretty much finished from a writing perspective, I'm kind of excited to say I feel confident it does.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a LinkedIn Bible, isn't it? It really is the go-to. You haven't left anything out from what I can gather. So, really exciting. That's going to be out really soon with Wiley, and I'm sure anybody following you on LinkedIn, as I recommend all of our listeners and viewers go and do now. If you're not already following Daniel, to head over there. Not only can they learn, from your example of how to build your profile using LinkedIn, but you'll also get all those updates on the book and when it's actually available. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've shared so many tips. Where can people find you, other than LinkedIn, of course?
I was going to say, ironically enough, LinkedIn tends to be where I hang out. So yeah, please do, if you do want to kind of keep up with the content I share, check me out, follow me on LinkedIn. My website is danieldisney.online, and again, I push a lot of content, blogs and articles on there around LinkedIn and kind of social selling. So I've really enjoyed this chat, George. I hope everyone who watches and listens to it enjoys it. And if anyone has any questions about LinkedIn, just pop me a message or an email. As I said, my passion is to help, and I'm keen to help anyone as much as I can.
That's awesome, Daniel. Thanks so much.